759 million people lack access to electricity and 3 out of 4 live in sub-Saharan Africa, and that includes Uganda. The Sustainable Development Goal number 7 aims to ensure access to affordable, reliable and sustainable modern energy for all by 2030. In terms of energy, Uganda is richly endowed with natural resources. The country has abundant biomass, including large quantities of non-woody biomass, as well as peat and water resources. As a country, we also enjoy ideal solar, geothermal and wind energy potential. But water and biomass make the biggest contribution to the energy demands of Uganda's 45.7 million population. 60% of people in the country's urban areas have access to electricity, while it is limited to only 18% in rural areas. Clean or renewable energy presents an opportunity for sustainable and affordable supply of electricity for all. In studio, I'm joined by Engineer Virimaso David, Acting Assistant Commissioner, Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, and we are going to discuss that topic, examine the potential benefits of clean energy sources, how it works, and how clean energy can be used in the current climate change crisis whilst achieving the Sustainable Development Goal number 7. Engineer, good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for hosting me today.
Indeed, we need to talk about this because it is an important sector for the country's economy and the livelihoods. But before we get into the topic, Engineer, what does an acting commissioner do at the ministry?
An acting commissioner for any ministry would be responsible for ensuring that the necessary policies regarding a particular sector he or she is responsible for are in place. So basically, we do conduct necessary assessments, necessary consultations to ensure that the relevant policies are identified and are in place.
Yeah.
Yes, so that is the role.
So let's get into it, Engineer.
Yeah.
What is clean energy? For us who do not understand the science.
Exactly. Before I even go to clean energy, I think it may be even necessary to understand what energy is.
Indeed.
Energy is a very broad term, and in science we define it as the ability to do work, the capacity to make changes or to cause changes to the environment. And in that way, we talk about energy referring to we refer to that as a property of matter which can be used to do any kind of work. Now, you see energy. I mean, you may not see energy, you may not touch it, but it is everywhere. When you look at a tree, it has a potential for energy. And when it becomes firewood, you can use it to cook because you can make heat out of the firewood and use it to cook. Yeah. When you look at water, it has energy contained in it, and when it is flowing, it moves with its energy. When it falls through a certain height, it will release its energy, and you can harvest that energy to do any kind of work. That work can be harnessed in a primary form or a secondary form or tertiary form. When you hear about oil, oil in its crude form has energy potential, and you can use its energy contained in it to do any kind of work. When you refine oil, you get the kinds of diesel, gasoline, kerosene, and other products like LPG. You will use those energies, I mean the energy contained in those refined fuels to do work, for example, in transportation. It has been a hot topic in these past days.
Of course.
I will not go there.
And we are very expectant to start drilling
is any Ugandan to understand that energy is everywhere and we use it. Electricity is always hot when we talk about it. But today I want to people to understand that all that is energy. Whatever we see around us is energy. The sun is energy. So we look at energy in various perspectives. Some energy is classified as non-renewable energy. That is, it cannot renew itself or replenish itself within a short time, like the oil. It is formed after millions of years of decomposition of matter underground.
Yeah.
Some of the energy is renewable, like the biomass, the trees we see. They can replenish themselves within a short period of time. The sun is renewable because we can have it anytime. And in Uganda, we are blessed. We are at the equator, and it is just okay and convenient for us to use solar. You talked about geothermal. The heat from underground is renewable because it can replenish itself within a very short period of time. Now, when we use energy, like I said, it can be used in its primary form, like you go to the forest, harvest firewood, use it directly. Or you can use energy in its secondary form, like when you find diesel or gasoline, petrol. That is secondary energy because it has been converted into another form for the first time for it to be usable appropriately. Or it can be used in its tertiary form, like electricity. The electricity we use in our homes to light our bulbs, to power our TVs, it is secondary, I mean tertiary, because you have converted it more than once. For example, what do I mean there? We see water flowing. If we used it to grind maybe our maize or cassava flour, it would be used in its primary form. But if we use water to rotate an equipment, it is secondary. If the equipment rotating produces electricity, electricity now will be tertiary. Now, that means because energy cannot, you cannot lose energy, but it just gets converted into other sources. Not all energy you transform converts 100%. That is the law of nature. So therefore, we have lost more energy before we even get electricity. Now, why are we talking about clean energy? Clean energy comes with zero emissions. Emissions are not required or are not wanted. Those are unwanted elements which we may get after consuming energy. And you don't want to pollute the environments.
Indeed.
Emissions are pollutants. Talk about the particulate matter. Talk about the carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. We want our population to enjoy energy, but with either zero or minimal emissions, such that we can enjoy a clean environment. Therefore, it is pertinent to us to promote clean energy.
Which is renewable at that
so
point.
Clean energy can be renewable or energy efficient, energy saved through energy efficient means. Now, not all renewable energy sources are actually clean.
Explain that, Professor.
Now, if you look at the use of biomass, either firewood or charcoal, the firewood will emit the soot, smoke. And we have said clean energy comes with zero emissions. The fact that you have emissions out of using firewood, then firewood is disqualified from being clean energy.
Engineer, before we continue dissecting the different energies and what they emit, for the viewers at home who might not be well conversant with energy, what are the types of energy? You've talked about the renewable and the non-renewable. What are the types of non-renewable energy and the renewable energy?
Okay. Non-renewable energy sources, like I said, those are sources which are not replenishable within a short period of time.
Yeah.
We talk about crude oil. That is one. Petroleum is non-renewable. Now, we talk about coal, is non-renewable. We talk about natural gas, is non-renewable. So those are energy sources which take very long to be replenished. Renewable energy sources, the energy sources which take a very short time to replenish themselves, which are given to us by nature, include the sun, solar.
Solar, hydro.
We have the hydro, the wind, geothermal. All of those are renewable energy sources. Therefore, like I said, not all renewable energy sources are clean. I mean that any energy source which you use and it emits something, it is not clean.
Yeah.
So that's why I disqualified biomass in its primary form.
Engineer, we got that point. What I was looking for is for you to simplify some of the sources that the Mwananchi can understand.
So we will always refer to them as biomass or charcoal and firewood, solar, hydro, and wind.
Perfect.
Or geothermal. All right. Yeah, now, before we go any further, there is another common term which we usually use, which I wanted also to define: energy efficiency, which I said is another clean energy source, although it is always available to us as long as we save it. Now, energy efficiency is that proportion of energy which is used during production or consumption of energy. Now, what does that mean? If I was consuming energy, or I was meant to consume energy, but then I am able to save part of it, the energy I save is clean energy. For example, if I was using a compact fluorescent bulb, which is usually called an energy saver, which is 18 watts, and I become innovative and I say, let me remove this bulb, and I replace it with an LED bulb, which is 9 watts, I will have saved 9 watts immediately, from 18 to 9. The energy I save there is clean energy. So that's what we mean by clean energy efficiency. You are saving a proportion of the energy you are using. So that is another term which is very common, and to us it is an energy resource because it is available and it can be used. So when you save it, it is available to you for other activities. Now, the more energy efficient you are, the more benefits you will get in terms of sustainability and being more clean and environmentally responsive. So that's why we are advocating for clean energy, which involves use of solar and other clean energy sources which do not emit, and energy efficient technologies.
What are some of the clean energy sources that we are probably experimenting with or potentially already using here in Uganda?
We are experimenting solar at different levels. You have seen very small units of solar which are in form of solar lanterns. A bulb or a lamp with a very small or micro solar panel which can be used to charge it. And they have been disseminated all over the country. People are using them. We have promoted solar at a household level. A sizable solar unit with probably 3 or 4 bulbs plus other auxiliary equipment like radios, and it comes with a slightly bigger panel. We have experimented solar at institutional level, whereby we have those isolated solar systems which have been, for example, piloted in schools and hospitals to provide energy for schools, for lighting, powering computers, etc., and in hospitals for powering equipment like fridges and other appliances. Then we have also promoted solar at a mini grid level, whereby a sizable solar unit is installed to provide electricity and other energy functions to a certain village. And we have piloted this in Lamo, for example, Kasese, where you have heard in news that we have installed
I've been to Kasese.
Mini grids.
They do use solar.
Then we have used the solar to produce electricity, which we even feed into the grid. You have heard of the Kabula Soke solar power plant. So solar used at any level is clean energy. Then we have promoted efficiency, energy efficiency in institutions, industries, whereby we encourage efficiency to be like a norm, a behavior, a lifestyle. If you have been using inefficient processes and equipment, we provide technical assistance, sometimes financial support, to improve your efficiency, such that you can get more output, you can do more activity from the same units of energy you were using. You are feeding, for example, 500 people. Instead of using 5 lorries of firewood, we try to encourage you to convert to clean and efficient technologies and reduce or even avoid the use of firewood. Recently, we launched a campaign specifically in the cooking sector, where we're encouraging a shift from the use of charcoal. We are not discouraging, but encouraging the shift from the use of charcoal to electricity. Electricity is clean because when you are using it at a consumer side, you don't see any emission.
And it's renewable.
Yes. So clean energy technologies like the use of the electric pressure cooker is very key to transform us from the use of biomass technologies like charcoal and firewood in their primary form to clean lifestyle. You cook your food without seeing any smoke. It feels good, of course, and you will have saved a lot of energy. What our people have not understood probably is the cost embedded in acquiring a certain type of technology to have energy in our homes. Some of the energy sources we think are cheap are actually expensive.
Like what, engineer?
I haven't tested it to other people, but I have tested it on myself. It may be expensive to cook with charcoal than electricity.
Or gas?
Yes.
Isn't gas much better?
Gas at a demand, at a consumer side, is also clean. I had not mentioned that. But gas is also clean at a consumer side, although it is non-renewable, but it is clean. So this campaign also takes into account that also, the use of gas. But we are trying to experiment which one is a cheaper way of accessing energy. Electricity inclusive. because our mandate as the Ministry of Energy is to ensure that every Ugandan gets energy, which energy is adequate, affordable, clean, and sustainable. As in, it is available every time. You can afford to pay for it. It comes in a cleaner form with zero emissions, and that energy is always there when you need it. Now, if that is our role or our mandate, then it is upon us to ensure that these clean technologies are popularized. So, like I said, we are doing that campaign to ensure that we access clean energy cooking technologies. And we are experimenting which one is the cheapest way.
Option.
Which one is the cheapest option? Should I use electricity? Should I use gas? Should I use charcoal? Should I use a combination of all? Which one is cheaper?
Well, if you have just joined us, my name is Idris Matusegawa, and we are discussing clean energy as an option to ease access to affordable, renewable, sustainable energy for all by 2030. And remember, only 18% of people in rural areas in Uganda can access energy. Join the conversation on our social media platforms, that is Facebook and Twitter. The hashtag is Clean Energy Uganda. Tell us, do you have energy? Do you have electricity where you are? We shall be back just after this break. Good morning and welcome back to our talk show where we are talking about clean energy and how it can ease access for you at home to have electricity, to have energy, to have, if you're using biomass or gas to cook, or to even operate some of the machines at your workplace. In studio, I have engineer Birimumaso David, who is talking about the importance of clean energy and the benefits that we can get out of it. Engineer,
yeah,
you talked about how some of these non-renewable energies are basically destroying our climate because of the emissions from probably petroleum, the gases that go up, and also you touched on the wood energy that probably gives off smoke but not as much as the oil. How can clean energy help in the fight against climate crisis? Because we've seen changes in temperatures, floods. Recently here in Bududa, we've experienced a lot of floods, and that goes to show you that we have a climate change crisis on our hands. Can clean energy be the answer?
Maybe before I answer that question, I think it is very important for me to give a small picture of Uganda.
Yeah.
86% of the energy we consume comes from biomass. Electricity contributes 1.8% of the energy we consume. The rest of the energy is petroleum. The whole of this week, we have been in the news regarding the oil we have in the Albertine Graben. It comes with a number of opportunities. When we talk about clean energy, it doesn't mean that the other energy sources are not useful. They are very useful and important. And we will continue using them. What we are aiming at is neutralizing the effects of the other energy sources. Now, back to the environment part of it. Looking at the fact that 86% comes from biomass, and we know that we use biomass mainly through three key ways. One is firewood, another is charcoal, And the third one is residues, which may be in the form of, for example, wastes which come from coffee, rice, and other agricultural products like nuts, etc. The main way we are consuming biomass is firewood. By harvesting the trees, either dry or fresh, we harvest them and use them to provide energy. And that energy is in the form of heat. Now, the more we demand for biomass, the more our forests are affected. You will believe me, 20 or 30 years ago, the area where your ancestral home is was a forest. Now, today, when you go back to that home, you can hardly find a tree which can give you 5 pieces of firewood. But that has not happened in 1 year. It happened over years. Maybe it took 25 years for the forest there to be cleared. But you will believe me, we have cleared most of our forest cover to provide for either energy and some other auxiliary products which we may desire, such as furniture. But I believe energy has contributed significantly to the depletion of forest cover. In addition to that, we have continued, of course, to use petroleum products to provide for transportation in our country. I think if you don't wake up at 5 in the morning in Kampala, you will take 2 hours to move just 10 kilometers. Now, the more you burn petroleum fuels, the more you pollute the environment. I think I had some figure somewhere which I wanted to share with you. Every liter of diesel will produce for you 2.7 kilograms of carbon dioxide.
2.7?
Yes. Now, if every day you are consuming, for example, 10 liters, let's say that is the minimum you are consuming to move in Kampala, and you have 1,000 vehicles in Kampala, and just allow every vehicle to use 10 liters, you can imagine how much carbon dioxide we are pushing into the atmosphere. And the whole of Kampala, by evening, it will be not enticing. If you walk around, you won't be pleased to breathe.
Of course.
You won't have fresh air. So energy consumption and climate change move together. The population has grown. I heard you saying we are 45.7 million people.
Yeah. And
that
still
means our energy needs are also growing. Now, if our energy needs are met by biomass and petroleum products, then believe me, within a very short time, Uganda will be among the big polluters in the whole world. Okay, let's take East Africa. Uganda will be among the top polluters in East Africa.
The question would
therefore, how do we help ourselves to be environmentally friendly? But I wanted you to first ask your question.
The question would be,
yes,
if we know that clean and renewable energy, of course, serves the climate and serves on the affordability of power, why are most economies going for the energy like fuel that clearly is destroying our climate? Is it that the cleaner energy sources give off a low power charge than the non-renewable?
It's not true. But there are a number of issues which have to be solved as a team. If we work together, then that puzzle can be solved.
Yeah.
But it is a mixture of a number of issues. Some are related to capacity to have these technologies popularized. Some are related to political environment, policy making. Yeah. Some are related to the economic factors, financial availability. Do we have the finances to do it? Now, clean energy technologies, solar technologies, let me start being specific, have not reached the level we want them to be because of a mixture of concerns. Maybe some think the energy density is not sufficient. Maybe some think the technology is not yet mature. But like I explained to you, we have promoted solar at every level, and we can say it is successful at every level we have promoted it. That means it is possible to power ourselves with the solar also. You have already said it, most of our electricity comes from hydro. Almost 96% comes from hydro. Therefore, we are not far from clean. But the entire transportation is powered by petroleum. What we are saying, is it possible to have our transport system, for example, electrified? We become clean. It is possible. You have seen some pilots of electric motorcycles
and electric cars,
and you have seen electric cars. I don't know whether you have seen one in Kampala, but
not
they are
in
there.
Kampala, but Elon Musk's company has produced an electric car that actually are used in the US.
I have seen in Kampala.
You have?
Yes.
Which one?
Have you heard of the Chira EV bus?
Yes, I have.
It moves in Kampala.
It's electric?
It is electric.
Interesting.
So we have seen they are there, they work. Now the issue is, how do we popularize them so that we can neutralize the effects? Like I told you, every liter of diesel you consume is equivalent to 2.7 kilograms of carbon dioxide emitted into the atmosphere. The atmosphere is big. You may think it will diffuse and disappear. But if it is too much of it, it takes a very long time. And it will affect the environment. Therefore, having seen that it is possible to have these clean technologies, then it is our responsibility, me and you, and the population out there,
and the
to popularize it. Therefore, we need the appropriate policies to make sure that these clean technologies are promoted. We can have an electric train in the heart of Kampala. But the issue is our willingness, the right policies in place, and the working together of every stakeholder. If we come together, we can achieve more. You don't have to look at yourself as if you can't do anything. Now, to wrap up the issue of climate change, small things I know also contribute. In our homes, we also have to be climate sensitive. We have been able to convince Ugandans that LED bulbs work. So we moved from incandescent to energy savers to LED. LEDs are also energy savers. But because locally we tied the name energy saver to a CFL, compact fluorescent bulb, I will leave it there. So I will talk about incandescent, those yellow bulbs, the energy saver and LED. If that works, now we are saying it is possible to cook on electricity at a cheaper cost. you know, the cost of energy is not just the tariff, but it also takes into account how long and what is the density. How much do you demand at a given time? If I have proved it that cooking half a kilogram of rice consumes less than half a kilowatt. To be specific, 0.2 kilowatt hours.
A kilogram of rice?
Yes, half a kilo. And that same energy can cook for you a kilogram of rice if you used an efficient appliance like the electric pressure cooker I said. And I have also proved that it is possible to cook half a kilogram of beans with 0.25 units of electricity. Therefore, these things are possible. The challenge is electricity everywhere?
The distribution.
Yes.
Because even currently in Uganda, we are producing excessive electricity that we are even selling. It
is our mandate, like I said, we have to take electricity to every Ugandan. That is our mandate. And it's also our mandate to tell you that it is possible to cook with electricity, and it can save our environment, it can save our money, and we are able to sustain our activities for a longer time.
But engineer, as the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, how are you collaborating with other policymakers and partners to make sure that Uganda has a full distribution? Because again, you mentioned it earlier, that we are producing excessive electricity that we can even afford to sell it off to our neighboring countries. Why isn't the whole of Uganda accessing electricity? 18% rural areas access. Urban areas is 60%, which is a good number. But the villages, what can be done? Because again, Sustainable Development Goal number 7, access for all, 2030, 8 years. What can be done?
Of course, through engagements, through talking to each other, through dialogue, we can achieve this. It is true our access rate is very low, maybe 24%, but whether 18 or 24, it is still very low. That is on grid. But we are around 60%. We are 57% to be specific, total access rate. If we take into account the off-grid access, like those people using the solar lanterns, people using solar home systems, if we take all those into account, our access rate is at 57. Now, the puzzle to be solved, how can every Ugandan get electricity? At least to light your house and be able to do some small things like powering your appliances in a home. Maybe not every Ugandan will get access to the grid electricity. But every Ugandan should get electricity in any way it comes, whether through off-grid or through the grid connection.
Engineer, sorry to cut you short. So is that where the clean energy comes in?
So that is where clean energy complements. Yes, solar. Like I said, we have taken some solar mini grids to Lamo, some remote area in Uganda. There are villages which are very far, isolated,
inaccessible,
and hard to access. And you find that the only way is to do solar mini grids there. So we are collaborating with a number of partners. One of them is, for example, GIZ, who have supported us in popularizing these clean energy technologies. taking solar mini grids to a number of areas in the country. Now, if every Ugandan is able to get electricity, which is our target, 2040, then it will be possible for us to tackle this issue of climate change. Because you can't talk about shifting to electricity when somebody doesn't have it.
Yeah.
Yes. So that is where we are going. We are on the course. We are on the right journey. And we think the continuous engagements with a number of stakeholders, including Ugandans ourselves, plus our development partners who are happy to support us, we will reach there.
How does clean energy help our economy as a country? In terms of the bigger picture.
In terms of the bigger picture, I think either I forgot to mention it, but I could have mentioned it. That the energy we are ensuring that it is accessible by Ugandans, it is for social and economic growth. At a higher level, energy we know is the blood of every activity we do.
Yeah.
And no activity will continue, will go on without access to energy. Like you saw, transport had started to be paralyzed when we had a scare of unavailability of fuels. Fuel was becoming too scarce, and a number of activities were being affected. Therefore, you spend more, you end up spending more if you don't have access to sustainable energy. Energy which is available anytime you need it is very key. Therefore, we want to support our economy by making sure that energy is always available when you need it. You can't produce cooking oil if you don't have energy. And you won't have soap if you don't have energy. Because all those are products of processing industries. Therefore, if industries cannot process anything, if they don't have access to energy, then you won't have the necessary services. Therefore, it is our duty to make sure that energy in any form is available and it is adequate. Yeah.
The timelines that are set to achieve the sustainable, of course, goal number 7, and also to make sure that every Ugandan has access to energy, 2030, and you mentioned 2040.
Yes.
Is it a realistic timeline?
It is realistic according to the plans, and if it is our prayer that we are able to get the finances to meet all those demands. By 2030, by 2026, our aim, for example, for electricity, is to ensure that we are able to produce 3,500 megawatts.
At the moment, how much are we producing?
At the moment, we are producing 1,325.
Okay.
But I think you may be aware that in the next few months, we will have 600 megawatts added. Therefore, we will be close to 2,000. And we will have the next 3 years to fight hard to see that we hit our target of 3,500 megawatts. That is electricity alone. We have targets to ensure that our oil which is available is refined
by 2026.
2026. Therefore, our 2030 target is achievable.
Indeed.
I told you we are using 86% biomass. Our target is to reduce biomass consumption to 50% by 2026. Therefore, we think all those targets are achievable, because if you look at the mix we are having in the cooking sector, which mainly provides for reduction of biomass usage. We are promoting the use of LPG, popularizing it, because we think it is also a contributor to clean energy technologies. We are popularizing the use of electricity for cooking. We are popularizing the use of electricity for transport. Therefore, our mix, if you look at our plans, we think we will be in position to achieve the target of 2030, whereby we want about 60% Ugandans to have access, and by 2040, 100%. Because we know our population is growing. Therefore, we will have more energy demands, and more people will move towards urban centers. So what does that mean? It will mean that the demand for the different energy sources will also increase, and therefore we are working hard to see that we meet that demand. Today, our demand for electricity stands at around 730 megawatts. And we are saying that may not be, our electricity won't be enough by 2026. Therefore, we have to increase. Vehicles are increasing every day. We are saying by 2030, we won't be able to sustain a clean city. Therefore, there must be a shift to electric mobility. So our plans, we think, are sustainable, and they are realistic, and they are achievable. We are not working alone. We are working with a number of stakeholders to see that we support each other to meet these targets.
The plans sound wonderful indeed.
Exactly.
Engineer, as we wrap up this conversation, any parting word that you have for the viewers and the citizens of Uganda in terms of embracing clean energy?
My last words, I want to draw our focus on the benefits we have for using clean energy and energy efficiency technologies. It saves ourselves money, not only individuals, but also the country at large. The more sustainable we are, the more resources will be spent on putting up reserves for energy. Number two, it will save our climate, our environment. The more cleaner we be, the less we will pollute the environment. And we will have fresh air at any time. Number three, at individual level, we will have reserved money to do other things. The more we develop, the more we grow, the more children we have, the more demands come. Now, if you are efficient and you are saving some money, you are able to sustain a number of activities for a longer time. You have seen people saying, I no longer have money to pay for school fees. But if you are being clean and efficient is not in your lifestyle, then you may not even afford the little you've been able to afford before. And the last one, when we are clean, we enjoy the country together. Therefore, we want to enjoy a clean country, a safe country, which is free of emissions. And the Ministry of Energy will continue to promote the clean energy technologies as our mandate is. Those are my words I could have. Ministry of Energy is found at Amber House. It is our headquarters, and you can always contact the Commissioner for Energy Efficiency and Conservation. That's not me. That's my boss. he will be able to provide any information we may need regarding clean energy, clean energy sources in the country. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming through, Engineer David Birumaso. We have been discussing clean energy as an option to ensure reliable, affordable, and sustainable energy access for all by 2030. So, at home, before you use non-renewable energy, think twice. Ask yourself, am I preserving the climate? Am I preserving my environment? Choose clean energy in whatever you can do, whenever you can. And remember, you can join the conversation. It doesn't stop here. Use the hashtag #CleanEnergyUganda on our social media platforms. That is Facebook and Twitter. Look out for NTV Uganda, or myself, Idris Matusegawa, or the Ministry of Energy and Renewable and Mineral Development. And give us your opinions. How can we improve the use of clean energy? Well, goodbye and catch you next time. Be sure to catch up with this conversation on our YouTube channel. That is NTV Uganda. Look out for Clean Energy Conversation and you'll be able to enjoy the conversation. Bye-bye.